part of me wishes I could be a member of a jury, and a part of me is grateful I can't. Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and this is Winston the Westie vlogging at you from my car. I have been vlogging from my car for so long now because of the COVID lockdown. I have officially gone through 4 seasons. When I was vlogging in my car during the summer, the problem was that it would get too hot. I'd have to put the air conditioning on. People on the internet would complain about me doing vlogs with my car running. In the winter, the problem was that the car was too cold and I had to turn the heating on from time to time. Now I am back to the problem of it being too hot. A solution to this problem would be if I were to strike a deal with Elon Musk and Tesla and have a Tesla car be my home office. One can wish and one can hope. All right, but I digress. The big story of the week, and it's going to be the big story of the next weeks to months, is the Derek Chauvin trial in the George Floyd death. Derek Chauvin's trial has started now, and we are in the process of jury selection, which is a process that is going to take up to 3 weeks in this particular case. There was a time in my life when I received jury duty notice in the mail, and I was so excited to actually partake in it, and then I flipped over the document, and it said the following people are excluded from being jurors, and that included lawyers. Don't ask about the rationale. I guess they want people who are sufficiently educated but not overly educated. Being a practicing lawyer, also you might have connections to the courts, to the judges, etc. Either way, I was disappointed. I still went to court to see how the process worked in Quebec. But as relates to the jury selection in the Derek Chauvin trial, there are a few things that everybody should understand. In this particular case, I think there's little reason to give an overview. Everybody already knows the basic facts at issue, which is going to be one of the problems in selecting jury members. George Floyd was the 46-year-old black man who was arrested on suspicion of having passed a counterfeit $20 bill at a store. When he was detained, there was a struggle. It ended up with Derek Chauvin pressing his knee to George Floyd's neck for over 8 minutes and George Floyd passing away. Derek Chauvin was charged with 3 crimes: second-degree unintentional murder and second-degree manslaughter, and a third charge of third-degree murder, which was initially dismissed, but it's under appeal, so that charge is currently in limbo. Apparently, the appeals court told the trial judge that he should reconsider a motion to reinstate the third charge. If it's reinstated, it could delay the trial, but for the time being, we have started jury selection, and it is a fascinating process. It is a fascinating process that is actually being aired live on the internet and on TV for those of you who still watch TV, so I would implore everybody to go watch it, if only for a few minutes, maybe an hour, just to get the feel for what it is. It really is something to watch and listen to. So bottom line, back in December, prospective jurors were sent a questionnaire that they filled out, and now they have started actually examining, questioning potential jurors viva voce in court, and they're going to stop when they get to 14 jurors selected, 12 of which are going to be permanent jurors and 2 of which are going to be alternates in case something happens to one of the 12 permanent jurors. In the jury selection process, there's a very important concept to understand, which is called the peremptory challenge, which means that either side can strike a juror for any reason whatsoever, in fact for no reason whatsoever, if they just don't like the juror. Chauvin's side has 15 peremptory challenges, while the prosecution has 9 peremptory challenges. I don't know if these are specific rules to this trial or the rules at large. Just appreciate that they have peremptory challenges. They can strike a prospective juror for no reason whatsoever, except they can't strike that juror for race-based reasons. Peremptory challenges cannot be based on race, ethnicity, or sex, and that is actually going to come up in this particular jury selection situation. As of the time of shooting this vlog, the defense in this case had already raised 2 peremptory challenges, both as relates to potential jurors who were Hispanic, leading to the prosecution alleging that these were in fact race-based peremptory challenges. The judge heard the arguments and decided that they were not race-based. Where are you going? They were not race-based peremptory challenges, and the challenges were upheld. The prosecution raised a peremptory challenge as relates to a white male in his 50s or 60s who apparently upon questioning said that one should not second-guess police officers' decisions. And the judge dismissed 3 potential jurors. One was a woman who said that she couldn't be impartial, which reminds me of a clip from The Simpsons, which I'm going to show you right now.
We were talking about the time you beat jury duty.
Oh, yeah. The trick is to say you're prejudiced against all races.
The other was a man who said sitting on this jury would negatively affect his work, and the other was a 19-year-old who said he would treat policemen different as witnesses. So that is where the jury selection stands as of today, and it is a slow-moving process, as is everything in court, which is a question of hurry up and wait. But let's just go over this questionnaire so we can see some of the questions that were asked to these prospective jurors. Please answer all of the questions as completely and honestly as you can. You must answer all questions, but you may answer, quote, quote, private if disclosure of some of your past experiences would be particularly sensitive, traumatic, or embarrassing, and the judge will address those questions in court as privately as possible. As you answer these questions, please keep in mind that there are no right or wrong answers, but you are answering these questions under oath, and you will be required to verify under oath that your answers are true when you come to court for the first time. Part 1, Knowledge of the Case. On May 25, 2020, George Floyd died after an interaction with Minneapolis police. The charges in this case stem from that incident. There will be people out there who are going to get offended at the neutral phrasing of that question. They're going to say to themselves, George Floyd did not die after an interaction with the Minneapolis police. Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd by putting his knee on his neck for 8 minutes. Those people are probably not going to be selected as jury members. Others out there are going to get offended at the question for the exact opposite reason. They're going to say George Floyd did not die after an interaction with the Minneapolis police. He died as a result of drug overdose because he had something like 9 times the lethal limit of fentanyl in his body. Those people also would likely not be selected as jury members. So they need to phrase the question as neutrally as possible, not to suggest any facts that would be determined after presentation of the evidence during a trial, and that is why they phrase the question that way. What do you know about this case from media reports? It is important for the parties to know all of the details you remember about these events, the case, George Floyd, and defendants Derek Chauvin, Tu Tao, J. Alexander Kueng, and Thomas Lane. Please take your time to search your memory and provide a full account of what you recall from what you have heard or seen in the media. This is going to be the hardest thing about this jury selection, and it's probably going to be impossible, finding a jury member who doesn't already have some basic knowledge about the case. It's not just that this case made national headlines for weeks, it led to mass protests across the country, across the world, so it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to find someone who doesn't have any knowledge of this case. And I would imagine that finding a jury member who either does not in fact have any knowledge of this case whatsoever, or who claims to have no knowledge of this case whatsoever, would pose its own problems. It's going to be a question of finding a jury member who doesn't already have a foregone conclusion of this case and is open to being convinced by the actual evidence presented at trial, if that is at all possible. But moving on with the questionnaire. From what you have seen, read, or heard, do you have a general impression of the defendants? From what you have seen, read, or heard, do you have a general impression of George Floyd? Now, for the time being, the identities of the prospective jury members are not being publicly disclosed. Their ethnicities and rough ages are being disclosed, but their names are not. But one day, these forms may become public. Social media posts that these prospective jury members may or may not have made may become public, which might put them in contradiction with their jury form questionnaire thingy. You will recall that this is exactly what happened in the case of Roger Stone, which called into question the alleged impartiality of one of the jury members who actually was the what do they call them? The jury forewoman. Social media leaves footprints, and I have no doubt that the attorneys in this file are scouring social media to make sure that the answers in this form are correct. Then the form goes on to media habits. What is your primary source of news? How often do you read a hard copy or online version of a newspaper? What newspapers do you regularly read?
Klaus is a moron who knows only what he reads in the New York Post.
What podcasts do you regularly listen to? Now, I don't know, but I have a sneaking suspicion that if you answer that you regularly listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, for example, you are getting booted as a juror. There would be strong suspicions of partiality if one were to have listened to Joe Rogan. George Floyd murder has a real chance of changing the world. Interesting side note, when Robert Barnes and I discussed the Joe Rogan question during our last live stream, I noticed a lot of people saying Toe Rogan in the comment section, and I had no idea what that meant. I Googled it. Apparently, people call Joe Rogan Toe Rogan because his head looks like a toe. I had no idea about this meme. It's not a very nice meme to make fun of someone for the way they look, but moving on. Part 3, police contacts. They ask if the potential jurors have any regular contact with law enforcement agencies, for example. Have you ever been restrained or put in a chokehold, for example, by law enforcement or during a self-defense class? And then we get into a question that asks for the jurors' honest opinion on a number of issues. Discrimination is not as bad as the media makes it out to be. Blacks and other minorities do not receive equal treatment as whites in the criminal justice system. Police in this country treat whites and blacks equally. Police in my community make me feel safe. I support defunding the Minneapolis Police Department. Minneapolis police officers are more likely to respond with force when confronting black suspects than when dealing with white suspects. Because law enforcement officers have such dangerous jobs, it is not right to second-guess decisions they make while on duty. The criminal justice system is biased against racial and ethnic minorities. I do not trust the police. People today do not give our law enforcement officers the respect they deserve. Local police department tried to cover up excessive force rather than correct it. I think that news reports about police brutality against racial minorities is only the tip of the iceberg. Strongly agree to strongly disagree. Then we get into a question that I suspect would be determinate for either side depending on the answer. How favorable or unfavorable are you about Black Lives Matter? And how favorable or unfavorable are you about Blue Lives Matter? I mean, the questions are self-explanatory. The only real issue is going to be whether or not the potential jury members are going to be honest, whether or not they've made social media posts that are going to come back to haunt them if they answer the questions untruthfully or incorrectly. But it is just fascinating to get a glimpse into the questionnaire that is being presented to potential jurors in a case of this magnitude. Then there is the section on the potential jurors' opinion of the justice system in general. Do you believe that the jury system in this country is a fair system? Why or why not? Do you believe our criminal justice system works? Why or why not? Under our system of justice, defendants are presumed innocent of the criminal charges against them. Would you have any difficulty following this principle of law? Now, if you can believe it, from time to time I get calls from absolute ingrates looking to weasel out of their civic duty of sitting as jury members, and they say, Viva, how can I get disqualified from jury duty?
Duty.
To which I respond, I wish I could sit on jury duty. How dare you call me asking for such a question? And the answer typically is undue hardships. Other than getting disqualified for having answered the questions truthfully or getting caught having answered the questions untruthfully, which I would not recommend to anybody, undue hardships is typically the way most people get out of jury duty. Especially in the context of a trial of this magnitude, it could go on for a very long time and it could very much negatively affect someone's work. Now, in theory, workplaces are required to give a person leave to go sit on jury duty, but sometimes it'll just negatively ruin someone's life to the point where they will be excused from jury duty. Health reasons, family reasons, young children at the house, these types of hardships are what we call undue hardships. They could justify as an excuse to get out of jury duty. Other than that, technically speaking, you have to answer truthfully, and if you are selected for jury duty, congratulations, you're on jury duty. So that is a breakdown of the jury duty questionnaire. That is an update as to where things stand as relates to jury selection. If you like my videos, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm. If you want to support the channel, all of these support links are in the pinned comment. We've got PayPal, Patreon, subscribe to our YouTube membership. We've got merch, random merch. All of the shirts are there. Robert Barnes and I have a page on Locals. It is called vivabarneslaw.locals.com. We do weekly live streams every Sunday. But more important than that, take care of yourselves, check in on friends and family, make sure everyone around you is doing well, and now you know your vlog. Peace out.